My mother once told me I was a mistake. Not out of anger, just casually, like she was stating the weather. At my father's birthday dinner last week, I watched them laugh with my sister, praising her fiancé, my ex. I wasn't even invited, just showed up, unannounced, foolishly hoping things had changed. But nothing changes in a family like mine. They've been erasing me for decades, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, isolating. This time, though, I found something. A deed, a signature. Proof that the house they're living in is mine. They took everything from me. Now I'm taking it back, quietly, brilliantly, and they'll never see it coming. I stood outside the front door of my childhood home, clutching the bottle of red wine I'd picked up as a peace offering, knowing damn well it wouldn't be opened. The porch light buzzed above me, casting an orange glow over the wreath on the door, decked in gold and crimson, Chloe's favorite colors. Not exactly what Dad would have picked for his birthday. But then again, Chloe always had a way of making everything about her. I rang the bell. A beat passed. 2. Then I heard it. The sharp click of heels, the swing of the door, and there she was. "Cassie?" Chloe's voice was pure surprise, dipped in mock sweetness. "We didn't think you'd be able to make it." "I'm full of surprises," I said, stepping past her into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. The house smelled of roasted garlic, butter, and rosemary, nostalgia and contradiction wrapped in warm air. I heard laughter bubbling from the dining room, and as I walked in, time folded in on itself. My father sat at the head of the table, flanked by my mother on his right and Chloe on his left. Her fiancé, Matt, poured wine, the picture of charm. I froze. Matt. My Matt. Well, ex-Matt. From 5 years ago. But still, my jaw clenched instinctively. He hadn't aged, still had that calculated smile, and the arm around Chloe's chair like he belonged there. "Oh my God!" Chloe squealed, grabbing my wrist and yanking me into the spotlight. "Everyone, Cassandra made it!" The table turned toward me with varying degrees of surprise, none of it genuine. "Cassie," my mom said, rising to kiss my cheek, lips barely brushing skin. "We thought you were swamped with work in New York." "Changed my mind last minute," I murmured, offering the wine like an apology. She took it with a look that said it wouldn't be touched. "Sit, sit," Dad boomed, always the peacemaker. "We're just about to serve dessert." I took a seat across from Chloe, who was glowing. She leaned over and flashed her ring, the diamond catching the chandelier light like a deliberate weapon. "Matt proposed last weekend. We're getting married in spring." The clatter of silverware filled the pause I didn't know was coming. I stared at the ring, at him, and then at my mother, whose eyes flicked over me with a peculiar satisfaction. "Matt, that's wonderful," I said, voice hollow. "Oh," my mother added, tilting her head, "you two dated, didn't you? Years ago?" Chloe looked between us, feigning surprise. "Seriously? You and Matt?" "We were together for 3 years," I said quietly. Silence. Then a burst of laughter from Matt. "Wow, small world, huh?" "Practically incestuous," I said before I could stop myself. The table went still. My father cleared his throat, and my mother's gaze hardened. Chloe smiled. "Well, clearly it wasn't meant to be. I mean, fate chose me." I didn't eat much after that. The cake came, the wine flowed. Just not mine. Chloe toasted to Dad, to family, to new beginnings, and everyone laughed like I was the punchline. The conversation blurred until it was a hum of memories I was never part of. After dinner, I slipped away to the upstairs bathroom. I needed air, space, anything. On my way back down, I passed my mother's study. Door ajar. A flicker of curiosity pulled me inside. The desk was clutter-free, pristine. But in the trash bin, I saw something. A torn piece of notepaper, edges jagged. I pulled it out and flattened it. She's never been right. Chloe was always the future. Cassie. Cassie was just a storm we had to weather. I froze. The handwriting was unmistakable. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I ducked out and pressed myself against the wall as my mother passed by, wineglass in hand, whispering to Chloe just behind her. "She can't ruin this, Chloe. We've worked too hard. Smile. Keep her calm." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just let the truth wash over me like cold seawater. They weren't shocked by my arrival. They were afraid, not of me, but of what I might remember, of what I might still own. My fingers curled around the torn note, a keepsake, a warning. When I walked back into the living room, no one asked where I'd been. They were too busy laughing, too busy being a family, without me. The next morning, I woke in my childhood bedroom, suffocating under a quilt that still smelled like mothballs and fake lavender. The floral wallpaper had faded, but the old trophies and ribbons, none of them mine, remained perfectly dusted on the shelf. Chloe's shelf. My name never made it onto that wall. Downstairs, I could hear them laughing again, always laughing. But it wasn't warmth, it was performance. I didn't go down. I waited until I heard car engines and goodbyes, then crept into the kitchen, hungry for coffee and maybe, foolishly, a conversation with my mother. She was already there. "You're up," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Yeah," I replied. "Didn't sleep much." She stirred her tea, then finally looked at me. "I hope yesterday wasn't too hard on you?" "Hard?" I smiled thinly. "You mean the engagement? Or the part where my ex-fiancé toasted with my sister while you all pretended like it was nothing?" Her gaze narrowed. "It's been years, Cassandra. Don't be dramatic." There it was, my family's favorite word for me. Dramatic. Always a little too much. Always the unstable one. I turned to leave, but she stopped me. "Oh, and don't forget," she added, voice suddenly chipper, "the family will be finalizing the estate papers next week. Just signatures, nothing complicated." Something twisted in my gut. Estate papers? Dad's just making sure everything is clear. Chloe will handle most of it. I said nothing, but the room was suddenly colder. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the pharmacy to refill a prescription and ran into Dr. Halston, our old family physician. He looked surprised to see me. "Cassandra, it's been years." We chatted awkwardly until he leaned in, lowering his voice. "I'm glad to see you're doing well. Your parents were very concerned back then." "Back when?" "You don't remember?" he asked gently. "They brought you to me when you were 17, said you were unstable. They wanted you committed, but I couldn't ethically sign the paperwork. You weren't a danger to yourself. Just angry. Rightfully so, in my opinion." The pharmacy noise faded into a dull roar. I could barely nod. "I don't remember that." He frowned. "Sometimes trauma hides itself. But you weren't crazy, Cassandra. Just cornered." Cornered. The word echoed long after I left. Back at the house, the air felt heavier. I walked past Chloe's old room, now remodeled into a home office, and paused outside the door. Muffled voices drifted through the thin wood. "If she finds out it's still in her name, we're screwed," Chloe hissed. "She won't," my mother snapped. "She never asked questions before." "She's not stupid anymore." "We'll transfer everything next week, quietly." "We can't let this fall apart now." I stepped back, silent, invisible. So that was it. The house? The estate? My name was still on something they were desperate to erase. Later that night, I stayed up, pretending to read by the fireplace. Chloe was on the phone, walking through the hallway, not realizing I could hear every word. "Yeah, draft it tomorrow," she whispered. "Make sure it's dated 2 weeks back. If she finds out she still owns it, she could contest the whole thing." She paused. "No, she won't. She never fights back. She just sulks. It's what she does." I stared into the fire, jaw clenched. My sister had always been good at smiling while twisting the knife. I should have screamed, confronted her, demanded the truth. But instead, I reached for my phone. I texted an old college friend, now a real estate attorney in Boston. "Hey, random question. How would I check if a house deed is still under my name?" Seconds later, 3 dots appeared. "Easy. County records. Send me the address." I sent it. 20 minutes later, she replied, "Yup, still under your name. Has been for 12 years. I stared at the message. The house. The one my parents lived in, the one Chloe wanted. It was mine. They had no idea I knew. And for once, I had no intention of telling them. Not yet. The snow had started falling by mid-morning, covering the yard in a soft silence that felt almost holy. Inside the house, it was anything but. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, tabs blinking across the screen. Legal forums, financial record sites, property tax portals. My inbox pinged again. The reply from another bank confirmed what I already knew, but couldn't yet process. The home equity loan, taken out 2 years ago, had been filed under my name. The address matched this house. The digital signature looked close enough to mine to pass a lazy inspection. But it wasn't mine. Neither was the second loan, nor the line of credit opened in my name. The total debt? Over $600,000. I didn't feel anger, not immediately. What I felt was a numbness, cold and creeping, as if something inside me had finally detached. I closed the laptop, stood slowly, and walked upstairs to the attic. I hadn't been up here in years. Dust coated every surface and cobwebs hung like curtains over forgotten boxes. I knew exactly what I was looking for. A shoebox marked Cassie High School. I opened it slowly. Inside were old report cards, a cracked music box, and a stack of letters. Most were from college applications, rejection and acceptance alike. But one envelope stood out, yellowed, brittle, with my mother's looping script. I slid out the note and read it, the words etched into my memory like glass shards. We never planned for you. You came during the worst time. Chloe was our joy, our miracle. You were noise, chaos. I hope one day you'll understand why we had to focus on her. There was no date, just a signature. Mom. I folded the letter back into its envelope and set it down gently, as if afraid it might scream. Back in my room, I paced for what felt like hours, running scenarios through my head, asking myself the same useless question. Why? Then, around midnight, I got the email. It was clearly meant for Chloe, but it came to me. Subject? Tonight. The body was short, 2 lines. Remember, we lie like we used to. Don't let her derail this. No greeting, no signature, but it didn't need one. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding in my ears, vision tunneling. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop through the window, but instead, I did something worse. I opened a bottle of wine, then another, and another. By 3 a.m., I was sitting on the back porch, barefoot in the cold, snow melting beneath my feet, glass trembling in my hand. No one noticed, no one cared. I thought of driving off the bridge just down the road. I even imagined the splash, the sinking. Peaceful maybe, quiet. But as I scrolled through old messages on my phone, I found one I hadn't seen in years, from Grandma Ruth, before she passed. You are not their reflection. You are your own light. Never forget that. Something cracked. I put down the glass. I went back inside. I turned on every light in the house, as if brightness alone could drive out the rot. And then I went to the study. The drawer was still locked, but the key had always been hidden behind the family photo in the hallway. Inside were folders, legal papers, tax documents, deed transfers. And there it was. Cassandra Ann Doyle, sole owner. Dated June 15th, 12 years ago. The house. They'd never transferred it. Never could. Because my signature was required. Everything they'd built, the fake equity, the renovations, the image, rested on a lie. And I held the truth. I stood there, heart steady, the numbness gone, replaced by something else, something sharp. I started reading everything I could about narcissistic parents. Psychology blogs, research papers, survivor forums, anything to explain why I had spent nearly 4 decades trying to earn love that was never meant for me. Every article was a mirror I didn't want but couldn't stop looking into. Golden Child versus Scapegoat, one headline read. It might as well have said Chloe versus me. Another, Gaslighting begins in childhood, masked as discipline. I remembered the time I'd been grounded for crying at my own birthday party, because Chloe had broken my gift and blamed me for overreacting. Each story I read from strangers online felt painfully familiar. Parents who punished their kids for needing attention, siblings rewarded for betrayal, whole lives shaped around proving worth to people who would never see it. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just my story. It was a pattern, a system. One night, I joined a Zoom support group, anonymous, voices from around the world, all talking about growing up erased. A woman named Erin said, "My mom used to pretend to be the victim every time I spoke up. Made me feel like I was crazy for remembering what happened." A man named Leo added, "They want obedience, not love. The second you step outside the role they've assigned you, they'll destroy your credibility." I didn't speak much that night, but I listened, and I wrote everything down. The next morning, I woke to a message from Chloe. "You really think you matter in this? Face it, Mom and Dad chose me. They always have. You were just a mistake they couldn't undo." No greeting, no context, just venom. I stared at the screen and, for the first time, I didn't flinch. I opened a new folder on my desktop and titled it Case_01, Doyle Estate. In it, I began collecting the forged documents, the email thread with my mother discussing delicate timeline adjustments, the audio I'd quietly recorded of Chloe admitting she wanted me out of the house. I took photos of the handwritten letter I'd found in the attic, screenshotted the banking statements, printed every page. By the end of the week, the file was 2 inches thick. Then I made an appointment. A small law firm in town run by a woman named Amanda Graves. She had kind eyes, a sharp brain, and the kind of quiet fury that made me trust her instantly. She read through the papers in silence, nodding occasionally, her mouth tight. When she finally looked up, she said, "This isn't just inheritance fraud, it's identity theft, financial abuse, possibly criminal conspiracy." "Can I fight this?" I asked. Her eyes gleamed. "You don't just fight it, you bury them with the truth." We spent the next few days refining the case, lining up dates, notarized copies, tracking loan trails. But I didn't stop there. I began planting seeds. I dropped hints to Chloe that I was moving back to New York, told Mom I might sign over my share just to end the drama. Pretended to scroll Zillow listings at the dinner table, sighing heavily. The performance worked. Their guard dropped. Then, the final act. I sent a group message. "I'm tired. I don't want this fight anymore. You win." The reply came from Mom almost instantly. "Good girl. We knew you'd come to your senses. Let's put this behind us. We love you." I stared at those words, perfectly composed, perfectly false. I didn't feel anger. I felt control. For the first time, the script wasn't theirs anymore. The invitation came in the form of a group text. "Family dinner this Sunday. Let's celebrate peace and fresh beginnings." Signed by Chloe, of course. It reeked of smugness, of victory. They thought I'd caved. They thought I'd swallowed the lie and agreed to play my part. So I accepted. I wore black. Not out of symbolism, I just didn't want to be remembered for color. When I walked into the dining room, it felt almost theatrical. The table was set immaculately. Crystal glasses, linen napkins, centerpiece roses in full bloom, blood red and open like wounds. "Cassie," my father beamed, pulling out a chair. "Glad you came, sweetheart." I nodded and took my seat. Chloe raised her glass. To healing, to family, to letting go. The irony nearly made me laugh. Halfway through dinner, I asked casually, "Do you remember that talk we had last year? The one about refinancing?" Chloe blinked. "Which one?" "You said I'd approved the second loan, but I never signed anything, so I was just curious. Who forged my name?" My mother's fork clinked against her plate. My father stiffened. I think you're confused," he said. "I'm not." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small speaker, set it on the table, pressed play. Chloe's voice, unmistakable, slithered into the room. "If she finds out it's still in her name, we're screwed." Followed by my mother. "Transfer everything, quietly. She won't notice." Then Chloe again. "She never fights back. She just sulks." Silence fell like a curtain. My father stood abruptly. "This is taken out of context." "Is it?" I asked, staring directly at Chloe. She tried to smile, but her lips faltered. "This is illegal, recording us." "Not in this state," I interrupted. "Single-party consent." I stood and turned toward the doorway. Amanda, my lawyer, stepped into view, flanked by a local reporter and a quiet man with a camera already rolling. Panic spread across their faces like wildfire. "You said you wanted peace," I said. "I'm giving it to you. On the record." The next day, the clip was everywhere. Cassandra Doyle confronts her family with evidence of forgery and betrayal. The comments exploded. People weren't just shocked, they were enraged. She tried to take her own life and they laughed about it? I hope the sister loses everything. This is why survivors must speak out. The video that tipped everything over wasn't the conversation about the loans. It was the second one. A video I'd found on an old family camcorder. Chloe and my mother in the kitchen years ago, laughing while discussing my hospitalization. "She did it for attention," my mother had said, pouring wine. Chloe grinned. She couldn't even get that right. That was the one that went viral. That was the one that set the internet on fire. By Monday morning, sponsors had pulled out of Chloe's social media partnerships. Her brand deals vanished. Dad's retirement fund, partially tied to public appearances and consulting, was put on hold. I didn't post. I didn't explain. I let the evidence speak. On Wednesday, Chloe called a press conference. "I'm a victim of manipulation," she declared. "My sister edited the videos. This is a smear campaign." Her voice cracked. Her eyes welled. The performance was Oscar-worthy, except for one thing. Matt, her fiancé, walked up to the podium mid-speech. He took the mic, looked her dead in the eye. "I saw the unedited files. You disgust me." And he left. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. Just truth. I watched it unfold from my apartment, tea in hand. No smile. Just stillness. Mom called me that night. I didn't answer. Dad showed up the next morning, face hollow. "We could lose the house," he said softly. "They're freezing our assets. The press won't stop." "I know," I replied. "You were my little girl once." I didn't respond. He sat on the couch, staring at his hands. "I didn't know how to be a father to someone like you. You were too loud, too smart, too hard to control." I finally looked at him. "You didn't need to control me," I said. "You just needed to love me." He stood, defeated. At the door, he turned back. "You were everything to me once, until you decided to be everything to yourself." Then he left. I didn't cry, not for him, not for any of them, because the ashes left behind weren't mine to mourn. The silence after the storm was almost unbearable. For weeks, my phone buzzed with messages, interviews, requests from media outlets who wanted me to tell my story. I ignored most of them. I didn't need a stage. The truth had already done what it needed to do. But something unexpected began to happen. Letters started arriving, real letters, not emails. A pale blue envelope from my Aunt Marjorie, a yellow one from Uncle James. They wrote the things no one in my family had ever dared say out loud. "We always knew how they treated you. We were cowards for not stepping in. Your strength has opened our eyes. We're ashamed, but we're grateful. For the first time in my life, I felt seen by blood relatives. Not everyone hated me. Not everyone believed the lies my parents spun for decades. One letter undid me more than the rest. It came from a cousin I barely remembered, Rachel, 4 years younger than me. Her handwriting was shaky, her words rushed. Cassie, I don't know if you remember, but when I was little, your mom used to babysit me. She would always tell me how perfect Chloe was, how I should act like her. I started hating myself because I could never measure up. I thought I was broken. Seeing you stand up to them, it's like someone lit a torch in the dark. Thank you. For all of us. I cried for hours after reading it. Not because it hurt, but because it healed. The truth wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to all of us who had been silenced. Days passed. My parents vanished from public view. Chloe tried posting apologies online, a carousel of smiling selfies with captions like, "Healing is a journey" and "Family is complicated." They didn't land. Her followers dwindled by the thousands. Then, late one night, my phone lit up with a message from her. "Cassie, I need you. Everything's falling apart. Please, you're the only one who can fix this." The words trembled with desperation, a far cry from the smug sister who had once dangled her diamond ring in my face. I read the message twice. Then I set the phone down, and I didn't answer. By spring, I had left the old house behind for good. Oregon's coast welcomed me with its jagged cliffs and endless roar of waves. I rented a cabin near the beach and started sketching again, something I hadn't done since architecture school. But these designs weren't skyscrapers or corporate offices. They were sanctuaries. A vision grew inside me. Community homes for people who had survived families like mine. Places where gaslighting and favoritism couldn't warp a child's soul. Safe havens where healing wasn't just an idea, but a blueprint. I poured my energy into it. Drafts, models, proposals. I pitched the idea to nonprofits, trauma counselors, small-town leaders who understood the importance of community. To my surprise, doors opened. Funding arrived. By summer, we broke ground on the first home. It wasn't just about bricks and beams. It was about rewriting the story, giving others the safety I never had. The walls would hold laughter without cruelty. The windows would open to light, not judgment. The doors would never slam in anger. One evening, as the structure neared completion, we gathered outside for a fire. Survivors, volunteers, kids who had grown up too fast. All of us circled around the flames. Someone handed me a guitar. I didn't play, but I strummed a few clumsy chords anyway, and the children laughed unafraid. I told them a story. Not mine, not exactly, but close enough. About a girl who was told she was nothing, who carried that weight until she learned to set it down. About fire that doesn't destroy, but transforms. About how sometimes the only way to break free is to stop asking for permission. Their eyes glowed in the firelight. They leaned in, waiting for the ending. I paused, looked beyond them, and felt it. The invisible presence of everyone who had ever doubted me, mocked me, diminished me. I lifted my gaze to the camera one of the volunteers was holding, documenting the night. And I spoke directly to whoever would watch. You've heard my story, but this isn't really about me. It's about you. Are you still waiting for their approval? Still believing you're not enough? Ask yourself this. Have you been brave enough to live as who you are, not who they wanted you to be? The flames crackled. The children's faces blurred behind the lens. Because the hardest truth I've learned is also the most freeing. You don't need their love to be whole. You just need your own courage. I let the silence hang heavy and bright. Then I smiled, faint but real. Tell me, are you ready? The screen cut to black.